audio comes through clear enough because it's pretty windy today. And yeah, I just wanted to give you another vantage point of the Golden Gate Bridge. I first started coming to Baker Beach when I was a young teenager. I got word that this was a nude beach, and my hormonal teenage self decided to bring myself out here. And unfortunately, I got some bad news. There was nudity, of course, but let's just say it wasn't exactly the type of scenery I was looking for. But yeah, there's also a really nice barbecue picnic area. It's currently closed right now because of COVID, but it will eventually open back up once things get back to a little bit more normal. Heavily recommend checking this place out, if nothing else, just for a really nice walk on the beach. It's a little bit chilly and windy today, but just an awesome place to gather with your friends, your family, and just soak in the waves a little bit. All right, just closing out another session from, you guessed it, Lucky Chances. Got started at about 3:45, just about 7 right now, so not too long of a session, but did get quite a few hands, so let's run through those. This first hand is a straddle pot. Low jack limps. I'm in the small blind with ace queen of hearts, and I raise it to $40. Straddler calls with $260 back, and the low jack calls covering me for over 1K. We go 3 ways to a flop of 10-8-7 rainbow, so I flop some running possibilities. I check. Straddler bets $60 with $200 back. Low jack folds, and given that he doesn't have too much left to play for, I decide to not peel and fold. Small blind shows 8-9 offsuit, and he wins this one uncontested on the flop. In this next one, hijack raises to $20. Cutoff calls. I call from the button with pocket fours, and the big blind calls as well. 4 ways to a flop of king jack 9 rainbow. Big blind checks. Hijack puts out a bet that puts an end to this one. So just a couple of quick hands and standard whiffs to start this session. Next hand, I raise it to $20 from under the gun with ace king of spades, and I get 3 callers from the hijack, small blind, and big blind. 4 ways to a flop of ace 7 deuce with 2 clubs, so I flop top pair on a flush draw board. The blinds check. I bet $45. Hijack and small blind call, and big blind jams for $151 total. Good spot to isolate, so I repop it to $320. Both the hijack and small blind get out of the way. We table our hands before the run out, and the big blind shows queen 4 of clubs for the flush draw. The board runs out jack jack, neither of which are clubs, and I take this one down. This next hand is a pretty funky one. Hijack raises to $15. I just flat from the cutoff with pocket 9s, and the small blind calls as well. 3 ways to a flop of 6-3 deuce with 2 hearts. Check to the hijack, who bets $20. I raise it to $60, and interestingly enough, both the small blind and hijack call. 3 ways to a turn of an ace of clubs. Both check to me, and this card shouldn't change too much unless one of them had an ace high flush draw. I decide to keep firing as it feels like both players are drawing. One with a pair plus straight draw, and the other with a flush draw. I bet $120, and the small blind jams for $375 total. Hijack also jams for around $180. Despite the price I'm getting, I just feel that I'm beat in this spot, so I decide to let my hand go. The river comes in 8 of diamonds. Hijack tables king 4 of hearts for the king high missed flush draw, and small blind tables queen 7 of hearts for the queen high missed flush draw. So king high takes it down, and I inadvertently bet myself out of this one on the turn. Hand immediately after, low jack raises to $15. I 3-bet it from the hijack to $50 with the solo act jack king off, and only the low jack calls. Heads up to a flop of ace king 8 rainbow. Checks to me. I down bet $40, which I think is fine on occasion for 2 reasons. One, it's an advantageous board that my range will want to bet, and while betting second pair isn't necessarily the norm, it's a bit deceptive, and it gives me coverage on king turns to be betting here. So that's what I do, and he makes the call. Turn comes a 4 of diamonds, and when he checks, I decide to check it back this time. River comes a 3 of diamonds, so it comes running diamonds. Once again, it goes check check, and he tables a hand that I did not expect to see. Pocket queens. So I'm fortunate that my pre-flop aggression wasn't met with more aggression, and I was able to see this flop and take it down. Shortly after, middle position raises to $15. I 3-bet it from the low jack to $50 with pocket 10s, and only the middle position calls. Heads up to a flop of ace 8-4 with 2 hearts. Action checks through. Turn comes a deuce of hearts, completing a straight draw and puts out the front door flush. He bets $50, and I've underrepresented my hand, so not going to let it go for 1 bet, and I call. We go to a river of a 7 of hearts. Interesting card, as now any heart makes a flush. When he checks, I consider my options and ultimately settle on turning my hand into a bluff and bet $150. Although I could be bluffing with the best hand, I would just hate to see a hand like Ace X Black if it goes check check, which is a hand that should fold to a bet. And he's in the tank for quite a while, and after some deliberation, he decides to let it go. Next hand, early position limps. Hijack, who is one of the better players at Lucky Chances, raises to $25. I'm on the button with pocket aces, and I 3-bet it to $75, and only the good hijack player calls. Heads up to a flop of 10-6-4 rain. I assemble a bet of $80, and before I can put it out there, he folds. So a bit of a short trip with American Airlines, but happy to take this one down. In this next hand, hijack raises to $15. I 3-bet it yet again to $50 with Beauty and the Beast offsuit from the cutoff. Big blind cold calls, and hijack comes along. 3 ways to a flop that comes triple nickels, and when it checks to me, it's a great board to fire as no one should have aces. I block kings and queens, and I can rep all of those hands. Don't need to fire big, so I go $65. Big blind folds, and hijack calls with $300 back. And my plan for his smaller stack is to go 3 streets with smaller sizing to make it look value-ish, as if I had queens plus. Turn comes a queen of diamonds, so it changes my hand from a bluff to value. I could just check it and polarize the river, but I opt to go with my original plan of bet in accordance with his stack size, so I make it $80, given that he's got $300 back, and this could potentially probe him to jam, and after he tanks for a while, he decides to fold. And this next one, under the gun limps. I raise it to $25 from the cutoff with ace deuce of hearts, and only he makes the call. Heads up to a flop of queen queen 10 rainbow. He checks, I bet $25, he makes the call. Turn comes an 8 of diamonds, action checks through. River comes a king of spades, and he checks. This is a good card to try and steal it, but this player has been sticky all night, calling people with second and third pair. So I opt to just play like a wuss and check it back. He tables pocket nines to take it down, and my lack of aggression cost me this one. In this next hand, cutoff posts the $5 to get in the action. I raise it light from the button to $25 with 9-10 off suit. I don't get the outcome that I was looking for, as the blinds and the cutoff call. 4 ways to a flop of 6-3 deuce with 2 diamonds. Checks to me. I decide to attempt a bit of an egregious bluff into 3 opponents, and I fire $75. Looking to rep over pairs on this board, of course, and small blind has different plans as he raises to $175. Big blind and cutoff fold, and I quickly let it go. Small blind, who is a pretty honest regular, tells me that he had pocket 3s for the flop set. This next set is somewhat interesting. Early position limps. I raise it to $25 from the hijack with pocket 9s. Cutoff, button, and early position call. 4 ways to a flop of ace 9-7 with 2 spades, so I flop middle set on a pretty draw heavy board. Early position checks. I bet $60. Cutoff calls playing 1K back. Button folds, and early position calls with roughly $300 back. Turn comes a queen of hearts, putting additional draws on the board. I still have the effective nuts though, barring slow played aces and queens. When early position checks, I size up to $240, as there are a myriad of hands to get value from, and I could also be cooling off hands such as ace queen. Cutoff tank folds, and early position jams for the roughly $300. I call and just table my hand before the river, which ends up coming the 4 of diamonds, and I take this one down. Last quick hand to run through. There's an early position raise to $25, and there are a couple of late position callers. I'm in the small blind with pocket kings and 3-bet it to $150. Folds around to the button, who tanks and also folds. I just show my hand as I decide to pick up shortly after. Alright, that wraps it up for this session. Dusted off some money in certain spots, either by not being aggressive enough or being overly aggressive. The pocket 9s hand actually in the beginning of the session was actually pretty pivotal. I know certain situations like that can actually cause people to go on tilt. I try not to think about it that way. You kind of just live with those situations. You're not going to get every decision correct, and it's important to just move on to the next hand and not dwell on either mistakes or bad beats. Anyhow, after that point, it was pretty smooth overall. Got in the game for $900, didn't have to add on. Cashed out $1,885, so just a shade under a 4-figure profit for a pretty short session, just 3 hours, and I'll take it. So we'll be back at it to grind some more and before the month is over, and then we'll go from there. Thanks for watching as always, and I'll catch you all on the next one.